California dreaming. For many people, Los Angeles means sun and sport. To others, it's the glamour and razzmatazz of Hollywood, the lifestyles of the rich and famous. But as Hollywood found out, it's not so far away from where the real action goes down. The streets of Los Angeles are a battleground. Just ask any cop.
Terrible. And there's no police presence down here. They will not enter the area.
During the 1992 LA riots, police say 20% of the participants were street gang members. But the riots gave the rival Bloods and Crips a common enemy. Instead of killing each other, they came together against the police. Meet John Hunter, alias JJ. At 23, he's a veteran member of the Crips. He's done crime, he's done time. Now, he can read the writing on the wall.
Hey, cutie, come here for a minute. Hey, sweetheart, you want to get on camera? Eyes like that? Your boyfriend for a hot minute.
JJ still hangs with his homeboys in the hood, but he knows it's a dead-end street. They've all seen killings and the feuds called gangbangs, but JJ has got smart. He wants a life outside the gangs, a way to stay out of trouble, a way to stay alive. Today, JJ gets his final discharge. No more parole. He's looking to the future. For now, JJ has the respect of his homeboys and the Crips, but he wants out.
Nowadays, with all the movies and the rap videos you got, and, you know, times is getting harder. It's like when times get harder, people get harder. So it's like at the age, when I was like 12 or 13, I might have been doing petty crimes in a gang, and now they doing major crimes. You know, you take the average 12, 13, 14-year-old, they might be doing crimes that I probably just started, you know, when I was like 18 or 19. So every generation gets faster.
From gang banging to gang busting. If you're in a gang in East LA, Joe Guzman is on your case.
This graffiti gives us, again, a tremendous amount of information. The name of the gang, the clique of the gang.
Vietnamese, Koreans, Hispanics, Joe Guzman knows where they're coming from and where their turf is. It's a full-time job with more than its fair share of danger. If your name gets crossed out, you're dead. To survive in this jungle, you learn to read the signs.
East Los Angeles is a 7.8 square mile area. We're dealing with approximately 58 street gangs and about 9,000 hardcore gang members.
And Guzman is a ruthless realist.
We use the analogy of cutting the head off a snake. Once we remove the hardcore from the community, the rest of the gang members, which are predominantly followers, will their activity will tend to dissipate.
It's a vicious circle. 4 out of 5 previously convicted offenders go back to jail before long. But JJ wants to beat the odds. Future in Action is the name he gave to a new organization which aims to give people like him a fresh start. When JJ met attractive, energetic Joanne Beck through a telephone helpline, things started to move fast. Their Future in Action is a nonprofit organization that helps gang members and street kids to go clean. Now JJ and Joanne are in love as well as working together. But JJ can't forget the deaths and the violence. Wherever he walks, his past goes with him. Convicted of rape, robbery, and attempted murder, JJ quit the gang scene after he was shot at 3 times in 1 week. Family is important for JJ. He doesn't want his young cousins making the same mistakes he did. That's what Future in Action is all about.
That is nothing more dangerous than to build a society with a large segment of people in that society who feel that they have no stake in it, who feel that they have nothing to lose. People who have stake in their society protect that society, but when they don't have it, they unconsciously want to destroy it.
And it was pretty cool that the riots happened because, you know, people are tired of the police. They're tired of the harassment. You know, it's about time they got something back.
People have to do something to get attention. That's why I call it a rebellion. It's not a riot.
How you doing? How you doing? Man.
Took me 20 years, but suddenly one night become ash and making me nothing.
It was everybody, man. It was just blacks like it was in the 60s in Watts. Man, it was everybody, man. Black, white, green, yellow, pink, and purple.
We've got apartheid here, but we just don't call it that.
If there was a large-scale rebellion in this country, it's something wrong with the country, and the country needs to be locked up, not the people for rebelling against it.
The people in L.A. and South Central, they know what's up, man. They know this stuff been going down for years. But then when we try to tell higher people, you know, they know what's up, but they don't want to realize. So they did what they had to do. I'm glad they done it myself.
Between April 29th and May 1st, 1992, thousands of people in Los Angeles rioted in the worst civil disturbance on American soil since the Civil War, one which covered some 500 square miles and left 58 people dead, over 16,000 arrested, and $800 million worth of damage. This film is an attempt to understand the magnitude of this most violent and costly civil disturbance.
None of this is what we wish to think of as American. It's as if we were looking in a mirror that distorted our better selves and turned us ugly. We cannot let that happen. We cannot do that to ourselves.
Society, first of all, doesn't want to look at what they created.
Right.
When that riot happened, that was society created. They didn't want to see that. Everybody went back into their closet, but it was a TV in your closet.
My home was within a mile of where there were fires, and we didn't want to go outside because the smell of the fires was so dense and the blackness was so intense from the fires. And you had no idea where they were going to spread to. It was an absolutely frightening, extraordinary experience. And it is a very scary prospect that a society that you think is as well organized and as safe as the one we believe that we live in really has that only as a veneer, and that you can get below that very quickly by whoever it was that orchestrated whatever happened.
You know what I think has frightened everybody in this last rebellion? It didn't stay in the heart of the inner city. It didn't stay in Watts. It didn't stay in Compton. It got 2 blocks from Beverly Hills. It wasn't just blacks. We found out now as we read the paper, there were Caucasians involved, there were Asians involved. Even the Asians got hurt, there were Asians who were doing some looting, there were Hispanics. So it means now that a whole lot of other folk are getting a little sick of what's going on in this country. There are too many have-nots and too few haves.
Why is it that some sectors of our society who are well off, who live in a different neighborhood, who have jobs and have good education, feel that the inner city is not their responsibility? It's sad because they're beginning to, they've for too many years now, for 20 years, they've started thinking and they continue thinking that there are two different Americas. You know, there's suburban America and there's inner city America. There's white Anglo-Saxon America and there's ethnic minority America. That there's middle class America and that there's low class and working class America. And part of the reasoning that makes people follow the same political leaders over and over again is that the reason there's backwardness and difficulties in the inner cities is because these people have brought it on themselves. It gets back to the point I mentioned before. These people are immoral, lazy, don't try and don't make an effort. But it's not that way at all.
People have to do something to get attention. That's why I call it a rebellion. It's not a riot. It's a response to systematic constraints in American society that have gotten worse over the last 2 decades.
This was not the first disturbance to hit Los Angeles. In the summer of 1965, a police brutality incident triggered off 5 days of civil unrest in Watts, the first in a series of inner-city neighborhoods around the country to go up in flames. At that time, the riots covered some 24 square miles. Lyndon Johnson and Martin Luther King believed that a war on poverty could cure the ills of the inner city. But even then, America's attention was moving far away from home.
The bombs in Vietnam exploded home. They destroyed the dream and possibility for a decent America. It is estimated that we spend $322,000 for each enemy we kill in Vietnam, while we spend in the so-called war on poverty in America only about $53 for each person classified as poor.
In fact, the war on poverty in America lasted only 3 years.
We've been putting out billions of dollars for programs for federal jobs and federal housing and federal welfare. And I'll tell you what we've reaped. We've reaped a harvest of riot and frustration and failure. And now they want to put billions more into the same programs, and I say no. My friends, I say when you're on a wrong road, you get off of it and you take a new road.
The federal government over the last 20 years has in essence withdrawn all of its support from central city communities, leaving them to fend literally for themselves. At the same time, many middle-class residents have fled central city communities for the suburbs, taking much of the tax base with them.
Some cities in this country, and I'm gonna name names, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, basic to me are just wealthy third world cities. All this opulence and wealth and stuff, and all this crashing poverty, man. We look like Guatemala, in some areas in Los Angeles. It's ridiculous. And our government, let me get one thing straight. I'm an American. I love America, okay? I served in the service for 9 years, okay? And, I love this country, but our government just don't give a damn, man. Okay, if you don't have the paper or the position, you got nothing coming.
The big companies, I heard that Ford, GM, and these American car companies have not created a single additional job in the United States within the last 10 years. That's amazing to me. They've always given these jobs to people in Hong Kong, Mexico. I think we should develop economy here. We should ask these companies to make factories here.
Between 1982 and 1989, you had 134,000 jobs disappear from the community, in part due to plant closings and in part due to capital flight, to third world countries. 140 some firms closed doors between 1982 82 and 89, and 13 of those firms moved to the U.S.-Mexico border. When you have that kind of capital flight, you're draining the lifeblood from communities like South Central Los Angeles.
Fact, 33% of the people in South Central Los Angeles live below the poverty line, a third more than in 1965. 2/3 of those arrested in the riots were unemployed. The 1980s saw the biggest explosion in immigration in 70 years. Following a change in national policy, over 8.6 million people were legally admitted to the states during the decade alone. Attracting the hopeful from Asia and Central America, Los Angeles has borne the brunt of this immigration, turning into the second largest Korean, Armenian, Salvadorian, and Mexican city in the world, coining the popular phrase Los Angeles, capital of the third world, while South Central has been transformed into a neighborhood with almost as many Latinos as African Americans.
Pues eso es, yo pienso que sí, porque yo de mi manera de estar aquí de 10 años, he estado trabajando por todo ese tiempo y yo he alcanzado lo que yo quiero y lo que yo he deseado tener.
My understanding of the American dream is basically in the United States, if you work hard enough, if you pursue your dreams hard enough and long enough, you can achieve just about anything you want.
The American dream is straightforward. I guess it means economic stability. Also, I was told that in America you put 10% down and it's yours. In Korea you have to, if you want to own something, you have to pay cash up front for a car, for a house. 10% down is yours. Maybe that's the American dream.
She's laughing. She's laughing at the American dream because people come here with that illusion that they're gonna, you know, there's a little proverb they say around here, when they tell you to come to the United States, you're gonna sweep up dollars. There's so much money here, you can just sweep it up, ¿verdad? Dicen que puede parar uno todos los sobres y ¿qué encuentra uno?
Nada.
You don't find anything. Pobreza, soledad, you find poverty, loneliness, and struggle. So the American dream isn't a dream here, it's a nightmare.
Comencé trabajando en una factoría.
I started working in a factory.
Planchando corbatas.
Ironing ties.
130 a 140 docenas por el día.
130 to 140 dozens a day.
Pagadas por 33 centavos la docena.
And paid 33 cents a dozen.
Y trabajando por piecework.
Working by what we call piecework.
The argument that undocumented aliens take jobs away from people here is, from my perspective, answered by, would you be willing to take a job where you get paid half a cent for each button that you paste on a blouse or a shirt? Would you be willing to accept 3 cents for every pocket you sewed on a blue jean? Would you be willing to be paid per garment according to how many snips you took of the extra thread that is left hanging? Would you be happy with a $7 per day paycheck? No benefits, no security that you would be in fact paid at the end of the week for 12 and 14-hour days. Would you be willing to work in a workplace that tells you from one day to the next that you're not any longer needed, or that day they don't need your services? Would you be willing to count on a job that provides absolutely no security, absolutely no dignity, and obviously no way to get ahead?
You see, there has to be an underclass in a great nation. Because if not, who's going to sweep the streets? Who's going to do the jobs that nobody else wants to do?
Fact. In 1991 in L.A., median household net worth for non-Anglos was $1,353. For Anglos, it was $31,904.
The American dream exists for a very small amount of black people. You know, that's just, they put just enough in there to say that black people do, some of them do have an American dream. If I was some kind of a pro baller or a basketball player, I have American dream, but you're talking about people around here, man. Around here, it's no hope. I mean, that's the way they feel. You know, it's no hope for no black dream. Black dream, what is a black dream? You know, a black dream is what we make a black dream. You know, I can go out and make $700 a week, and that's a black dream for me, as opposed to some white dude with my same credentials, he making $7,000. You know, but then when you talk about us slanging dope, selling dope, and we can bring $5,000-$6,000 a week in, that's American dream right there. For us out here in South Central now.
Black people don't even think about the American dream, you know. When you think about the American dream, that's just like a commercial you see on TV with the music in the back and the flag waving or whatever. I don't think of the American dream because 9 times out of 10, you know, we won't reap any of the benefits of the Constitution or having this dream, you know. Basically, it is a dream. It's a fantasy.
What dream? Where? The name of the game is survival.
You black and you growing up in the city and in the ghetto, your American dream is to stay alive, grow up, get you a lowrider, and become this superstar basketball player, football player, and live a happy life. Because that's what you see. You know what I mean? That's what they portray in the movies. You know, blacks being athletic, black being dope dealers, black being pimps, you know, blacks being hustlers, blacks being violence. You know, we see it on television. It's, you know, it's a shame that we don't got those big dreams of becoming corporate members in America, running big movie production companies, having our own telephone companies, and so on and so on.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
A basketball player.
Basketball player. What do you want to be?
A football.
Football player. You think before or after your sports careers you might be interested in business?
Yes. Yes.
What kind of business would you like to be involved in?
I think it begins with 2 things, education and jobs. I think that you can have a man dig a ditch, give him a good income, but give him night school at night so he doesn't have to dig that ditch forever.
Politicians have gone along with the political momentum and have bought into the idea that the way you deal with these people that are immoral, you know, and lazy is you get a stick and you beat them, arrest them, and you take them and put them in jail. In the last 10 years, we've had our prisons built, you know, to the tune of billions of dollars, and also the prison population doubled in just 10 years. That is not sufficient to deal with some of the problems of the inner city. You have to do more than that. You got to combine the stick with the carrot.
Give us some creative, like, you know, trade programs or some type of counseling to build our morale up. You know, a lot of people out here are hurt from families and this and that, and, you know, they're not bad people. They're not beggars, they're not thieves, they're not, you know, they're not dishonest people. They just need a stepping stone. You know, not to be thrown in jail for 2 years or 6 months. That'll cure them. That's only make the situation worse.
They spend like, what is it, $38,000 a year on one person. A year in jail.
To keep a man incarcerated when they can give me $38,000 just to be good on the streets every day.
In 1992, there were more black men in prison than in college. Facts like these have led minority communities to believe that society is judging them more critically than whites.
I see 2 different types of rules, 2 different standards. For the black communities, there's one set of rules, and for everybody else, it's the same type of rules. We're the type of people, we're guilty until proven innocent in criminal situations. As far as loans and government loans to help our businesses, we're always subjected to a stack of paperwork that we could never possibly qualify for. We're treated as if we're foreigners instead of citizens. Our contributions to this country, as well as to the state and to the city, is only documented in the news at 6 o'clock, and it's always negative. It's always about crime or rape or stealing or something like that. There's never anything positive shown in the black communities especially.
I feel like the government or President Bush, right now today, well, a couple of days ago, I was watching the news and I seen that he was gonna give $1 billion to Russian, you know, when South Central community is suffering like they are out there too. You know, we're suffering too. We don't have a lot and we're struggling, and that's why a lot of black people are stealing and taking things that don't belong to us because we don't have anything.
When President Bush came to Los Angeles, it would have made sense to me if he would have spent a week or two talking to the people, seeing what was going on. But when you fly in a plane, you give a speech about how you're going to just institute a program without even taking time to diagnose what had happened in this city. You know, there's something wrong there. I mean, what he did, I felt, how is that going to change? I mean, when he didn't spend any time here talking to the people, finding out what was going on, he just came in, flew in, instituted a program, said, you know, his few words, and left.
And not only blacks in the community feel ignored by the politicians.
Koreatown is located here, below Hollywood, above the 10 freeway, west of downtown LA in the Mid-Wilshire district. Koreatown right now is located in 3 different city council districts, 4, 10, and 8. This is John Ferraro's, Nate Holden's, and Mark Ridley Thomas's. What that does is that whenever we want to have some kind of influence with the city council, we have to go to 3 of them. We go to one and say, there's too much crime in this area. What are you going to do about it? He'll point to the other 2 council people and say, oh, these criminals are coming from their districts. Why don't you go talk to them? And it's the same circle over and over. We can't have much influence if we are divided into 3 different city council districts.
It's the leadership's way of sort of sweeping these problems under the rug, because if they deal with them seriously, they're actually maybe contributing to the politicalization of the population. And if they politicize them, then they'll just be another interest group, a large interest group, and a very powerful interest group that they'd have to sort of deal with politically. So it's better to just keep them without shoes, without clothes, without education, and keep them ignorant.
There's a double standard operating, and that if you're looking for justice and equality in America, you shouldn't look for it through the political process, because clearly there's some people getting fat through unethical decision-making, through unethical dealings in both the economic arena and the political arena. They seem to walk free and write books and make money off the books that they write, while inner city youth who commit crimes and the like are thrown in the slammer, not just for a week, not just for a month, but rather for life. And I think it is that double standard in American society that adds to the frustration and the alienation, and certainly is one of the root causes of the civil unrest, the rebellion that we saw in South Central Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, the richest third of the population control 9 city council seats. The other 2/3 of the population share the 6 remaining seats.
I'm one who respects our police. They keep the peace, they face danger every day, they help kids, they don't make a lot of money, but they care about their communities and their country.
Guys are drinking over there.
Instead of addressing the underlying ills of the inner city, politicians have responded by spending more and more money on the police. 60% of the city of LA's budget is now spent on law enforcement alone.
Officers that come into the inner city a lot of times have not had any experience or has never been to the inner city until they put on a badge and are assigned to a division in the inner city. And it's almost like I go home at night out in Simi Valley, then I come on and put on my accoutrements of war and come into the war zone. No ties to the community. The only ties that they may have are what they believe. Some of the stereotypes is we have to crush and suppress crime in that war zone. And it's unfortunate, but I think that stands to reason why we should have more cultural awareness when it comes to police officers.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Lawrence M. Powell, not guilty of the crime of assault by force likely to produce great bodily injury and with a deadly weapon, in violation of Penal Code Section 245A1, a felony, as charged in Count 1 of the amended indictment. This 29th day of April, 1992, signed by the foreman. Title of Court and Cause. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Timothy E. Wind, not guilty of
You got
assault by
man, beating up on a brother. That ain't nothing new. I mean, it probably new to the white people that's just seeing it on tape, but it ain't new to us. It ain't new to, it ain't new to us, man. That ain't nothing. And it happens all the time.
I think there was a little symbolism in the beating of Rodney King. I look at Rodney King on the ground being beat by batons, and it's almost symbolic of years ago a slave on the ground being beaten and whipped by a white slave master. Many African American officers felt the same. They felt that they or someone that they knew were on the ground being beat.
I think the Rodney King videotape was enormously powerful in showing people that the police do improperly treat defendants. And I think the Christopher Commission certainly gave additional examples and proved that it was institutional within Los Angeles Police Department.
On the computer screen in the police cars and the vehicles, they were referring to Rodney King or what was going on like gorillas in the mist, calling a black man a gorilla. They talk negatively about black people, but if a white man does it and gets beat, it's like nothing happens. That's why I said, black people have lost their inspiration. So there is no dream, and there won't be any dream anytime soon, because until the government starts showing they care about more than the upper class,
and treating everyone as an equal,
right? Then there will be no dream, and they'll have more problems than they do.
And I see the police getting a license to kill blacks. They got a license to kill with the Oriental and the black child, and then they wanted to back it up with the Rodney King beating, which means that we could just get beat and killed at any time. And I just feel like the blacks have really made a move before they made a move on us.
It's a lot of tension, and we've taken all the slack, and then when you can only just take so much, then that's when all the rebellion comes down. And see, we figure our only way of, satisfying us of the acquittal is to burn down, and what you see in LA. That's what's going down, man. That's the bottom line.
This is a rough night. It's a rough night, folks. And I'm not going to stand here and ask you to prepare to be happy, because we don't have anything to be happy about. We are angry. Today, those 12 jurors who live in that nice, cozy little Simi Valley could not open up their minds and get past the valley and to the facts. They said today to those 4 police officers, it's still all right to beat the hell out of a black man and walk away.
We have come tonight to say we have had enough. We encourage you to express your outrage and your anger verbally.
And this is just 4 blocks from the high-rises of Wilshire Boulevard, from the mid-Wilshire high-rises, very beautiful, modern buildings, and kind of a whole business core along Wilshire Boulevard.
This is the activation of the emergency broadcast system for LA County. Effective at 6:45 p.m. this date, the Los Angeles County Emergency Operations Center has announced expanded boundaries for the emergency curfew. The unincorporated community of East Los Angeles, as well as the entire city of Los Angeles, continues to be included.
He had a dream, man! He had a dream! We're betraying that dream!
We've got to quit. We've got to quit. After all, I can understand the first upset for the first 2 hours after the verdict, but to keep going on like this, and to see the security guard shot on the ground, it's just not right. It's just not right.
That right there, Korean on. Let's go take the camera that way. Louisiana, that's on fire right now, is Korean on. 1965 was a dumb riot. We burned the whole community down and our whole businesses. But now, they're burning everyone out of our community.
I have experience of a Korean War, but not bad like this. There's 10 times worse than the Korean War.
I was told to hate the Korean man because he bought you out. Hate the white man because he oppressed you as a nation. You know? Then you can't even love your own fellow black man because he's killing you too. So who can you love?
One of the first casualties of the despair has been interethnic relations. Minority communities have begun turning on each other, seriously undermining the spirit of multiculturalism in the inner city.
I'm just tired of this discrimination. They're always complaining about they're being discriminated. We're getting the same treatment from them.
And also they ask for respect. They always clamor for this kind of respect that they're always saying, but they're not earning this respect by doing this kind of action and this blatant kind of violence that they're doing. It's totally contradictory to their own leader, Martin Luther King, what he preached. They're totally turning away and they're going a full swing around what he said, and this blatant action will not be tolerated.
Sometimes when you go into these Korean stores, they don't treat you as if they need you. You know, you go in to spend your money and they don't act like it. They follow you around or give you an attitude or act like they don't want to help you. And they're in your community.
That's right. And one thing they owe you, if not anything else, is respect. As long as you don't disrespect them, they have no right to disrespect you, especially when you're spending your money. They need people to patronize them. If they could stand alone, then they wouldn't have to have service.
Or they could build their own community instead of having, you know, a store on every block in a black neighborhood.
I had a chance to look at some of the newspaper clippings from the 65 riot, and the reasons the community gave against the Jewish community were exactly the same as the reasons they're giving now. They're disrespectful, they're rude, they don't hire any African American employees. I think if it was some other community, Japanese or any other race, would have been the same thing. They were frustrated and they wanted to put a blame on someone, and the Korean Americans just happened to be there.
This is not a problem between Korean and black community, but this is a problem of United States. The government peoples are misrepresenting, not doing good job politically. That's why since I come to United States, every year people become poor and more trouble and more trouble for 20 years. So this kind of a trouble, rather I can blame to United States government instead of the poor people or young bums. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I am absolutely infuriated at the politicians, especially Diane Watson, for getting on nationwide television and saying that she does not condone violence. However, she understands how and why. And I think that's absolutely atrocious. She might as well have said she's condoning the violence.
Leaders giving an impression, creating a sentiment to the black community that Koreans are outsiders. I think that made the situation worse than it needed to be.
That fire right there, it should never happen. That is a black-owned mall. Koreans rent that building, but that is black-owned. It should never have happened. That's the worst thing could have happened today. That is black-owned. It should never have happened.
In addition to the hostility between blacks and Koreans, relations between blacks and Latinos have also degenerated in the chaos over jobs and community identity. Fact, Koreans sustained over half the total damage in the riots, Latinos around 40% of it.
It's like a festival. I don't know how else to describe it. And they're coming in like a celebration, and they're walking off with everything from beauty salon merchandise to the cleaners. Actually, people who have left their clothes in cleaners, they are being taken away.
People work hard and can only afford just enough to live from week to week, you know. After a while, you know, you get the mentality when you see a man riding down the street in a Mercedes-Benz, you know, doing good, and you busting your ass 60 hours a week, and you just bring enough pay just to pay the rent, put food on the table, keep the car going, and that's it. You know, you can't afford to take your kids to Disneyland, or take your wife to the movies, or buy her a new dress, or make her feel good, you know. And after a while, you know, you just get to a point where you just don't give a damn because you see yourself going nowhere. And that's what a lot of people have done. They just, you know, when the riots jumped off, they just said, fuck it, I'm going to go take my piece of the pie because I'm working when it ain't coming to, so I'm going to go take it.
I'm a victim of the King, what's his name anyway? You see what I mean?
Rodney King.
King Rodney's trial.
I think it's just the anger that the people have, the working class people, that are either working and can't get anywhere because they're being paid $6, $7 an hour, and the people that are on the social help system and the welfare system because they're at dead ends. No one will hire them, no one trusts them, and they're sick of the system. And they see this happening on TV, and they figure, this is my opportunity, I'm gonna go out and get that VCR or that TV, I'm gonna get the things that I've always wanted, because damn it, I've been screwed in life, and I'm gonna go get what I can right now, because it seems to be okay because everyone's doing it, and the police are nowhere to be found. And I'm gonna take this time in my life to take advantage and get something that I've worked hard for but just never been able to buy.
When you see people do it with children and the numbers of women involved, which is women usually are not major criminal offenders in this society, and you saw them taking their children into these stores, you begin seeing that there's a more systemic problem. It was too widespread to say these are just a few bad people.
It's at that level that this whole seething, disintegrated, disconnectedness begins. When people don't feel like they are part of the system, they can't even even get a job, then they're not going to feel that they have any reason to support, other aspects of the system or the law and order that's part of it. I don't know if you noticed, and many of the things that were taken from some of the markets were like necessities. I recall this one image of a big Latino man running out with a big crate of Pampers, instead of something that like liquor or beer, something that would be considered for his entertainment. This is like a necessity.
I'm sure there were a few opportunists, but I think much more of it was politically motivated than just the opportunists. When you have a community that is socially and geographically isolated from the mainstream, a community that is economically marginalized from the mainstream, what appears to be opportunism in reality is just frustration over not having an access to the American dream.
Latinos are now the largest group in poverty in LA. There were 50% more Latinos than blacks arrested in the riots.
If we are to redevelop the infrastructure, the social and the physical infrastructure of South Central LA and other inner city communities, it is imperative that we bring the hardcore disadvantaged minority males of color into the mainstream of Los Angeles society. If they are brought into the mainstream, they then will be able to form and maintain stable families, and we will begin to then solve a litany of the urban ills that characterize life in concentrated poverty communities like South Central Los Angeles.
But to more and more young men in the inner city, the language of liberalism has come to sound like a pipe dream, and they have created their own societies to replace the one that has failed them.
The best thing you have being a gang member is you have each other. If you don't have a father at home,
Where a mother takes care of you, you know, you have each other. That's all you have, is just each other. I take care of him, he takes care of me. We watch each other's back. The sign back here, it's a mural for my homeboy Bear, rest in peace. You know, and we just made it back here because he used to live here. And he used to hang around with us back here, even if he wasn't from our gang. He's a kid back with us right here. We got other guys over here too. We got Snake and Louie. We got plenty of guys.
Are they dead?
Yeah, they're all dead. There's got Snake up there and Louie. Louie got shot in front of a fireman. In front of the fire station on Jefferson and Adams.
Jefferson and Adams.
I mean.
Jefferson Hoover.
Oh, Jefferson Hoover.
Hoover, Station 15.
How did he get shot?
He was getting chased and he got shot with a shotgun in front of a fireman.
Shot dead?
Shot dead.
Is that right across from USC?
Right across from USC.
Was it a gang?
A gang. And my homeboy Snake got killed in front of a church on 25th. And we were 25th Magnolia, and he was sitting down with some girls, and they just drove up and they shot him with a gauge. He was sitting on a fence about this high. They shot him, made a little hole about this big, but they blew away his back. That's the reason you stay, because of the guys who died for your neighborhood, for your barrio. You know, those guys died for your barrio. They claim your barrio, and they die for their barrio. So that's why you stay. It's like if you get out of the gang, and you know a lot of more mothers are gonna get hurt. You can't leave because, you know, it's like you're letting them down. You know, it feels inside you that they're probably telling you, they're dead, or their spirits walking around saying, why you homeboys are letting me down? I died for you guys. You know what I mean? And there's no way you're gonna let somebody do that, you know what I mean? Maybe when I die, I see him up there, you know what I mean? I'll see him up there and they say, hey, you guys didn't let me down, man.
Pues me siento en parte mal.
In one way, I feel bad.
Por el camino erróneo que él tomó.
I feel bad for the erroneous road that he's taken, the wrongful road.
Pero yo sé que ellos son buenos.
But I also know that they're good.
Que tienen corazón y sentimientos.
That they have a heart and feelings.
Y espero en Dios.
I hope in God.
Que ellos van a salir adelante.
That they are going to move on and move forward.
Van a poner su vida derecha.
That they're going to straighten out their life.
Y formar su hogar.
And form their home.
Porque como dije antes.
Because as I said earlier.
Ellos son buenos.
They are good.
Todos los muchachos.
All of the kids. They're all good.
Todos.
All of them.
Let the bonds of affection, therefore, unite thee with thy brothers, peace and happiness, dwell in thy father's house.
May dwell in thy father's house.
I'd like to greet my brothers in the peaceful words of our forefathers. Assalamu alaikum. This is a message to the Crips, the Bloods, tribes, no longer gangs, not to be labeled as gangs. We were given that name, but that's right.
Indeed, to many in the community, assimilation is no longer even desired. Malcolm X has replaced Martin Luther King as the role model for a new generation.
I live in a society whose social system is based upon the castration of the black man, whose political system is based on castration of the black man, and whose economy is based upon the castration of the black man. Black people in that country, where I'm from, still our lives are not worth 2 cents. Well, anytime you live in a society supposedly based upon law, and it doesn't enforce its own law because the color of a man's skin happens to be wrong, then I say those people are justified to resort to any means necessary to bring about justice where the government can't give them justice.
We're not true citizens. We're second-class citizens. Malcolm said second-class citizenship is just modern-day slavery. That's all. It's just another word that really means slavery. Because if this government really upheld the principles in the Constitution, there wouldn't be no second-class citizens.
We are the victims of America's colonialism or American imperialism, and that our problem is not an American problem, it's a human problem. It's not a Negro problem, it's a problem of humanity. It's not a problem of civil rights, but a problem of human rights.
I'm gonna give you the history of the United States in 15 seconds, because I'm gonna tell the truth and I ain't lying, and I ain't trying to confuse you. Here's the history quickly in 15 seconds. If you have a watch, you can check it. Ready, set, go. Some pimps in Europe couldn't get their act together, came over here, stole this land from the indigenous people, went to Africa, stole us, brought us to this stolen land to steal a stolen empire throughout the world. I still got a little more time, I'll tell you one more time. Some pimps in Europe couldn't get their act together, came over here, stole this land, went to Africa, stole us, brought us over here to build a stolen empire to steal the rest of the world. That's the end of the history lesson. It don't take long when you tell the truth, you understand what I'm saying? It don't take long.
Every century they try to knock us out and mock us. And every century we rise. That's why we here.
I have the deepest respect for our organizations here, because if it wasn't for y'all, they'd have wiped us out on April 29th. Because the disorganized part of our community was still gonna go in them stores. But the only reason the police were slowed up, because they knew there was an organized element in our community. You know, I've been giving speeches on campus for a number of years. And every time I go, it seems like I can't hardly return back to the camps I was at. Because they used to always ask me to say, well, you know, we have to get people out of gangs and everything. Like I said, you ain't got no other organization for them. Boy Scouts of America is a gang. Y'all got your gang. What's up? You see what I'm saying? If we didn't have some organization, then they would have no respect with the way they deal with us. So my message to everybody, I went to Compton High yesterday, I said, yo, y'all need to make sure y'all belong to one. You know what I'm saying? And just make sure the curriculum is a positive curriculum.
The scale of the riots made the tribes realize they were not alone in their disaffection, and in the aftermath, they began to ask new questions.
I'm not afraid to die, but I don't wish to die. I'm not afraid to kill, but I'm tired of the killing.
Just what, a month and a half ago, the descendants of Africa rose up and rebelled against the fascist system of America, right? And its injustice in the judicial system. Immediately, all over the world began to rise up in the same manner. This tells us that as long as we running around here talking and not acting, the world will continue to remain the same.
It is time to get serious. We put down the pistols. So what's next? Where do we go from here? That is for us to decide as a people together. One big asset. Translation, one big asset. But just like every...
That's good.
All right.
The Constitution is written real cool. Why don't they live up to it? Why don't they? You can make them live up to it. All you got to do is be a man. All you got to do is take charge.
No one can do it alone. And no matter how hard you think you are or your set is, the government is still running this. And that brings us right back to politics, which we must get involved.
I want to just close with this. And it sums up what I said. It's a little poem. You know, you be working with all these hip-hop people, you just can't help throwing stuff into poems from time to time. It's called Correct Education. Just check it out. It's important because if you intend on getting involved and sending some of your membership onto the campuses, by the way, y'all can send them to me because for as long as I'm there, I make sure they stay free and don't become enslaved mentally. But this is a poem I use to close out any kind of little presentation. So just bear with me as I say it, I'll try to remember it. Only correct education can change your station in life. Now let Z shed a little light. Stop buying your diplomas and degrees from enemies. They ain't right, they're just trying to make you white. But if you gotta get it, then you should supplement it with information on our people. Treat us equal. The education that you get is dipped in bullshit. They steal the common sense that you came to school with. Because what they want to do is try to make you a sucker house slave. Check it out, you know it's true. They start in kindergarten, and by the time they finish, your image is abolished and your culture is diminished. We should teach ourselves, and then we could replenish our self-esteem and our future dreams and rearrange the scene. Y'all know what I mean. It's about overcome for freedom, not slavery for income. So in open defiance, I'm forced to boost a little science because I want to break the chains of Uncle Sam reliance. I want to expose the holes of Uncle Tom reality and compose the prose to set humanity free. Now, this country school is producing nothing but fools and the kind of hoes that ain't garden tools. So you better stay ready because the school attack is steady. They want to shred our culture and then toss it like confetti. Now, there ain't no need to be scared, but we all got to be prepared. You see, me and my posse, we cared, and that's why we shared. So if you're looking for an educational solution, all of us need to stay ready for revolution.
Gang membership is now estimated at 150,000. The 58 dead in the riots was only twice the average weekly death toll from gang violence.
There's no point in the power structure and anybody else saying that because we are peacefully going around trying to change conditions that we are the cause of the riots. That's dishonest. It is untrue. It is unfair to say it to the public because we have stood up for nonviolence with all of our hearts. And those who will make this peaceful revolution impossible will make a violent revolution inevitable.
There were other alternatives, but had they resorted to the other alternatives, they may not have gotten the attention that they were seeking.
Most people believe that the voice of violence is the voice that's heard first. That's the voice of peace. It might not be right, but that's what some people believe.
Because had they just walked up and down the street holding signs, singing, the president would have never come to South Central.
This is a war, and when you're at war, you go to the dirtiest tactics you can to win. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, I'm saying they're at war. Because that again is how the city and the government has set it up, especially in our communities. We're at war.
As far as talking to the councilman and all that, I mean, is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Okay, no, it ain't working. I mean, I got people on my block specifically that I know talk to the council people. You know, no results. No results. I mean, they can only do what they can do. And if the big boys up there, you know, if the big boys don't want to release no funds, we're not going to get no funds. That's all it is to it. If they don't want to release it, hey, our councilman can't do nothing. I mean, they just spokesmen. No, that's all they are. Just little spokesmen. But if the big boys don't want to release no money, they're not going to release no money. And see, we reached the big boys. We reached them point blank. We skipped over all them councilmen, assembly people, went right to the president. And you see what happened, they got results. Now they see, the people in South Central see what we got to do to get results. Ain't gonna be no thing to do it again. If that's what it takes to get results, that's what it takes.